Let's get it on then, shall we? Mwah. Welcome to Sex on the Peach, your weekly hump day dose of everyone's favourite untalked about topic, sex. Let's get honest, let's get open, let's get comfortable, and let's get into this week's show. Good morning, everyone. Happy hump day and time for another episode of Sex on the Peach. I'm your host, Peach, and today's show is an open conversation with my lovely friend, Kush Khanna. A few months ago, Kush posted an Instagram story about how it feels to be a member of the male gay community and to not enjoy anal penetrative sex. He received a huge response to that story because, of course, people were relieved that someone was speaking out about something that isn't usually spoken about. And I asked if he would be willing to come on here and speak with me about it. And I'm so grateful that he decided to share his story and thoughts on this subject so bravely and openly. Even within our own sexual communities, it's surprising how much judgment we still face, which is a lot of what we talk about today. As always, the conversation goes where it goes. We answer some of your questions, discuss the incessant request for labels in this day and age, and we also throw in some tips for oral sex and rimming, should you ever want them. Okay, time to let the conversation do the talking. Here is Pe-No-tration. Kush, thank you so much for joining me today and for being the first male and penis owner to join me on Sex on the Peach.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So obviously what led us here today to do this episode was you had posted an Instagram post about something that at the time you felt unsure about posting, but we've now acknowledged that it's something important to speak about. So if you wouldn't mind just letting our listeners know what that post was about.
Actually, so initially I sort of saw this tweet about the term side and I was like, oh, what is this new term? As we all know, in this current climate, terms are being like created or like constantly. So I was like, I'm going to do a bit of research on what it means. And then I realized that the term side means someone who doesn't really like penetrative sex. And as your listeners probably are quite informed, sex doesn't need to be penetration. Sex is all aspects of sex. So then I thought, actually, I'm someone who doesn't really like penetration, and maybe this is a term that I could probably go by. So then I just very innocently just put it like sort of Insta story being like, hey guys, so I kind of feel this way about penetration. I feel like I might like resonate with that sort of term. What are your opinions on it? What are your views on it? What are your understandings on it? And I suddenly got this barrage of like loads of comments being like, oh my God, I totally agree with you. I felt like this my entire life. I'm so glad that a term is now for it, because I just sort of felt like an outsider, or I felt that I must have been a bit of a weirdo because I didn't want to have anal. And then with those messages, I then started being like, oh my God, I'm totally not alone in this. Loads of people feel this way. And yeah, so that's how it sort of sparked our conversation.
Yes, as I said to you, I've had some gay male friends over the years mention that to me. But again, it would always come up in a conversation, and it definitely felt like it was difficult for them. Maybe it felt like it was easier for them to say it to me because I'm a female vulva owner friend, but I think they found it difficult. And it seems like I might be wrong, and I don't want to speak on behalf of a community, but I get the impression from some of my friends in the community that I've spoken to that the gay male community can be quite judgmental, and that's why people sort of have elements of shame in admitting if maybe something isn't for them.
I think what happens sort of in our community, and I'm obviously not speaking from the entire community, it's just sort of from the echo chambers that I sort of hear going around, is that sometimes they make your sexual position your personality type.
Okay.
And I've got a real issue with that. Do you know, like, oh, that's real bottom energy, that's real top energy. And do you know what? Maybe in the past, I may have said things like that, but this is all a learning process. And I think that's when it becomes a bit toxic, because you're correct, like a lot of gay men are a bit judgmental in the sense of even people they date. So they might go, he's only a top, so I'm not going to date that because I'm only a bottom. And I think that judgmental energy sometimes also seeds into, if we just had to step away from, say, the comments of being side, is sometimes I look at bisexual men and they'll be like, oh, they're bisexual for now, but they're going to be gay.
Right.
It's terrible. And I think there's a lot of judgment from the general community in all aspects. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it's going to go in the future. But I think the more we sort of speak about every sort of area of our community and other people's communities and sort of step out of our own echo chambers, maybe that judgment's going to be reduced a bit.
Sure. No, absolutely. Just for clarification of listeners, in case anyone doesn't know. So the terms that those in the gay community would use are top, which obviously means you preference, would we say, rather than
Let's
a
go with
necessity.
preference, yeah.
A preference is to give, a bottom, which preference is to receive, verse, which I believe is short for versatile, right? Can go either way.
Yep.
And now side, which I found out today was recognised as a sexual identity in 2013, which really isn't long ago at all. Like it's taken to literally not even a decade ago for someone to say there needs to be a space for gay men, gay penis owners out there to feel comfortable to say anal sex is not how I get my pleasure.
Exactly.
And it's crazy that only 9 years ago that was sort of taken care of.
I actually read a really interesting article about it the other week where some gay men, when the term initially was sort of coined, some gay men just said, oh, it's just the sort of immature gays, or the ones who haven't really come to terms with their sexuality. They haven't really delved into sexuality. And that was their response to being a side, because to them, of course, you're going to want to be a top or a bottom or a reverse. You're going to want to do penetration. So if you don't want to do it, you're just clearly not like experienced enough.
Right.
But what a stupid concept. You're not experienced enough because you don't want to put something in your arse. It sort of goes above me.
I mean, anyone listening at this point will know that I identify as pansexual. Because I have always still had sex with men and penis owners, I've never sort of faced any prejudice. But I obviously have friends in the lesbian community who have faced the backlash of you're not having real sex because you're not having penetrative sex. And all that is just an old-fashioned heteronormative view on what having sex the right way is.
Yeah.
And especially for women and vulva owners, that's insane, because as I've mentioned before, only 18% of us orgasm through penetrative sex. So then to suggest that that's the right way that you should always be having sex is insane, because it's like, cool, well, for 82% of us, it's not cutting it really. So let's look at all of the other things that you can do. And I have been listening to, I listen to a lot of sex podcasts. I do a lot of research because I like to feel informed, and a lot of sex therapists, sex educators are starting to suggest to straight couples, why don't you try for a period of time taking penetration off the table?
Interesting.
And seeing all the other things that you can discover, because there are things that people just don't do. People aren't looking at sexual massage or mutual masturbation. There's like so many things that people just won't try because they're just so used to their routine of sex ends in penetration.
But also, if you think about it, penetration to me, and I speak to, so my best friend Anushka, she's a bit of a sex educator in the world of, I guess, sex. But she's always sort of, I don't know how to word that. Really articulate there, Kish.
She's a sex educator in the world of geography.
She's gonna love me for saying that. We talk about it a lot, and actually, if penetration is the end goal, there's something quite misogynistic about that, because actually the only end goal for penetration is for the man to come. But you just said, is it 82%? You just said 82%.
82%
don't come. So it's all sort of drenched in misogyny, this whole concept of sex generally, if you don't mind me saying.
No, absolutely. It's patriarchy to the max.
Yeah, so I think we need to sort of take it by the horns, because even if you think about it, if we bring it back to, I call it anale sex, by the way, it just sounds more fun rather than anal. Anale. That is sort of drenched in sort of toxic masculinity, because it's saying that men are the only ones who are going to do anal sex, top, bottom, whatever. Women, I've got a lot of female friends who love anal sex.
Oh, me too.
Exactly. And I know a lot of straight men, or men who identify as straight, who want to do anal with a female. So
Hmm.
then they then say a female is a bottom, or like if they want to be pegged, does that make that female a top? Those
Sure.
That language isn't used. So why is it used in just one community? But if it's a sexual act, why is it not part of a whole umbrella? If that makes
Hmm.
sense.
And I think times have moved on a little bit now, but I know that especially when I was younger, if a male penis owner who identified as straight suggested that they were interested in having anal sex with their female vulva owner partners, then people would be like, well, you must be gay,
Yeah.
just because they wanted to put their penis in a butthole.
Yeah.
That what must automatically mean that you are gay. And I've also had some of my gay male friends tell me that their preference is to be a bottom, and they've sort of been ridiculed and made to feel which is obviously really insulting to women and vulva owners. They're like, oh, well, you're just like the woman of the relationship then, because you're just taking it.
It's so funny actually, because a lot of these titles are sort of based on heteronormative roles, as you just sort
Yeah,
of both said.
absolutely.
The more subservient male tends to be the bottom. The more
Hmm.
dominant is the top, aka male identifying, female identifying.
Hmm.
Obviously, I don't agree with that. That's just what the sort of painting is. It's quite interesting actually, because I have, when I was less educated on it, have
Hmm.
met slightly, because I'm not the most masculine man in the world, but I've met some really fabulously camp guys who are completely tops.
Hmm.
And but the initial thing people would think is, oh, you're camp, you're clearly bottom. And then
Hmm.
what, once again, we speak about why is your position your personality trait.
Right,
Um,
absolutely.
so we need to stop. We need to stop assuming that once again there's only two, three versions of it, but also we need to stop using it as some people use it as a crutch for themselves as a personality trait, and
Sure.
the rest project on others, which is kind of interesting.
How sort of, if you are looking to date someone, how early on do you feel like that conversation comes up? Do you feel like people look at it as a necessary thing to find out early on? And do you think that for a lot of people in the dating world, if they have a preference of the same, then they look at each other as not being sexually compatible? Is it kind of one of those things that's looked at like a deal breaker, and sort of how early on is that discussed? Because obviously that's something I will never have any experience of, so I sort of don't know that world.
To be honest, I think to a lot of boys, and it, I think it is a deal breaker to a lot of them,
Sure.
or it gets to. I mean, I sort of met the love of my life a few years ago, and
Hmm.
he was fantastic. He was wonderful in every way. Um, we never discussed positions,
Okay.
and because I didn't, or at the time, I didn't realize what the position was. I didn't realize the side was a thing, so I didn't want to even talk about. The conversation I didn't even want to bring up. So
Okay.
for a couple of months, we actually just did oral, and it was fantastic, and I loved it. But then it got to the point where he actually said, "Do you want to have sex, like with that penetrative sex?" I instantly blocked off, and my brain just went ding, and I
Okay.
got so scared, I ran away. I ran away from the relationship because I was too scared to admit that actually I don't think I'm ready for that, or I'm not ready for it at the time, or I don't want to do it. And I
Okay.
think that's when maybe being quite open early on is more healthy, because then you don't have to get to a point where you're actually really comfortable with someone, but then you're so scared of, which is so weird. You're so scared of losing them because they might not be into what you're into, but you end up losing them anyway. It's a really
Hmm.
weird concept. And I've actually was speaking to someone the other day where, oh, he doesn't say he's a side necessarily. I guess he is a side. See, this is the thing. We're all learning about it because it's like we're being educated as each day goes on.
It's also
Um,
impossible. We're being forced to put titles on every single thing we want to do every day. So
it's so hard.
I get
And
it.
plus, we might change our mind tomorrow. We might.
You want to
I
just be
might.
able to be fluid and
Yeah.
just see how you feel.
Uh, but he actually ended up going into an open relationship,
Uh-huh.
because him and his partner loved each other, but he didn't want to have penetrative sex, but his boyfriend did want to have penetrative sex. So their sort of meet in the middle was that, fine, you can go and get that because that's what you want, which is totally fine, and
Sure.
I love you, but I'm not going to offer it for you. So they went to a bit of an open agreement.
Well, I so again, everyone who's listened before will know that I am a non-monogamous person, and I would be exactly the same if I was
Yeah.
going to have a primary partner who, it is a good thing for me that I'm not naturally monogamous, because for me, if I have a primary partner and they enjoy having anal sex, they can go and get that from whoever they want, because they are not getting it from me. So
But but you were quite clear from the start, right? When you got into your relationships, were you quite clear from the start, or did that sort of grow as you got to know each other?
I mean, I have always found communicating about sex to be quite easy. Only because I mean, we work together, me, anyone who listens, I'm sure probably will know me enough by now to know I'm quite a direct person. And I just don't have time to waste into, like, for me, I just think if I'm not saying if I'm not communicating what I want, what feels good, so I don't believe in faking orgasms. I just think it's all a waste of time for everyone. And it's
Agreed.
one of the reasons that I think that we constantly look at long-term relationships. It's really hard to sustain, an ongoing strong sex life in a long-term relationship without work anyway. But I think one of the reasons we see the decline in the amount of sex people have in long-term relationships is because they aren't honest in the beginning about what really feels good. And listen, when we're at the beginning of a relationship, the dopamine is going mad and everything
Yeah.
feels great, because you just think that person is like the best thing that's ever happened. You don't care where they're touching you. You're like, this is the best thing ever. But maybe when the dopamine's chilled out a little, you can sort of have a sexual check-in and be honest about, realistically, long term, they are doing things, putting things in place, and vice versa, that really feel good, so that you're always going to sort of want to continue doing it.
It's
But I
so
just
funny.
think we aren't honest early enough, and then the longer down the line it gets, the harder it is to have that conversation, because then the partner is like, whoa, well then is what I've always been doing not working for you? And then that's a difficult position to be in, to think that you haven't been satisfying your partner. So for me, I mean, listen, I've tried anal sex once and I blacked
You
out.
blacked
My
out.
boyfriend at the time blacked out. My boyfriend at the time thought I died. Can you imagine?
I'd
He
cry.
thought he thought I died. He thought it was death by anal. Um, I blacked out from the pain. So it's
Oh
not.
God.
I'm not saying I will never try it again. I'm not saying I will never try it again, because I don't believe in saying that.
Yeah,
But
same.
I feel like it's highly unlikely I'm going to be someone who is going to be into it.
Yeah, and also you just think, okay, let's just think about the complete basics of when we're starting to learn our body. When we're like
Hmm.
young and we start sort of playing and wanking or masturbating, we come, it's euphoric, it's incredible. So why
Yeah,
are we suddenly saying that penetration has to give up? We didn't penetrate ourselves to have that feeling.
right.
So why do we suddenly need to ask our partner to do that? Um,
And that's definitely not something that, when we are young and we start touching our bodies. I mean, I don't know, maybe some people were thinking forward and
yeah,
did, but I know that when I started just touching my body and discovering masturbation, I wasn't putting anything up my bum. I don't think I've
yeah.
ever, I actually, to be fair, and as someone who is always going around telling everyone to explore their masturbatory adventures, um, I still don't think I ever have done that to myself. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like anything that has been anal related has always been with a partner, because I think it's not my preference and I don't really get much out of it. It's usually me being like, we'll try. You know what I mean? We'll give it a go. Like I said, not the anal sex, but a finger, a toy, whatever. It's very much like a collaborative effort, but it's never something that blows my mind. So I'm not doing it on my own.
Yeah, but also I just don't care for the admin. For me, sex should be spontaneous. Woo! Grab me, just pin me against the wall and just do anything. Play with my body. I don't want to be at dinner being like, oh my God, I can only have a salad. Oh, and actually, when I get home, I should probably douche. And you're going to have to wait a few minutes. I need to double check everything's working down there. The moment's gone.
Right.
I
I was going
That's
to
not
say,
sexy to
is
me.
there sort of always that ongoing work?
Well, for me, but I think this is another reason I don't like it or want to do it. For me, my body doesn't work that way. Like even when I douche, I constantly feel uncomfortable that someone's going to come out, and
Sure,
that's
sure,
not
sure.
sexy to me. I don't feel like, I'm sure if it's someone's fetish, great. I'm not going to shame, but for me
Hmm.
personally, I don't want to feel uncomfortable that I'm going to make a mess, but also it just hurts profusely. And I know they say a lot of the time, as much as we say when it comes to anal, you've really got to work down there. People are really going to like nurture the hole, shall we say. A lot of boys don't. They go
Right,
straight in,
okay.
and as I said, things might change in my brain when I've got a boyfriend who might. There's a lot of trust involved there, but
Hmm.
for me personally, it's just sex should be fun, playful. Like I don't
Yeah,
want to have to.
playful.
I don't want to have to worry, or especially we speak about like tearing your arsehole, like every single.
Well, we
I don't
spoke
know how.
about that before we started recording,
Oh,
but
should we actually?
yeah, for any listeners out there, there's a moment in every episode that's probably TMI, but actually, no, it isn't, because is anything TMI? No, no, it isn't. I
No.
believe I was born with a butthole that has zero elasticity, so it's impossible for anything to go anywhere near it without it tearing and bleeding and just being an absolute logistical fucking nightmare for God knows how long. Like, it
Mine is
just
exactly the same.
just doesn't. I don't believe any amount of training, because and that is something that you can do. You can supposedly, and I believe it. I believe that you can, but I don't believe mine can be trained
No,
to
mine
not
either.
relentlessly split.
Oh, and the feeling is so horrible. It's happened to me.
It's
I've only
horrendous.
twice now, and oh god, I couldn't walk. I actually had to take 3 days off work just from one sexual anale encounter where I had to go back home to my family home so I could have hot baths and hot salt baths every single day. I used to cry when I went to the toilet, and I was like, was this worth it? Was this one encounter worth me taking 3 days off because I can't walk and I'm in pain and I'm crying?
Mm.
No, it wasn't. I'm not saying actually anyone who's new to anal and listening and is into it, that's not always the way. Some people, it works beautifully, perfect, it's lubricated.
Some people love
I'm not going
it.
to scare anyone just in case. People
No,
love it, but I'm not.
absolutely not. I think we're just two people who have a similar anatomy in that respect, in that it just doesn't really it just doesn't really work for us. But I mean, listen, we'll get into it later, and obviously for people who are interested in trying anal, there are tips, there are tricks, and we will get into that, because I definitely want anyone who is going to try anal to be comfortable and know that it is a safe space. I think just obviously make sure you're with a partner, or whether that's a romantic partner, sexual partner, that you are comfortable with and that you can
Yeah.
communicate with, because if it hurts, you have to really be able to say. But I think this conversation is definitely more for members of the male gay community to know that there are other people out there who are identifying as sides. Again, I hate the title, but there are people
Yeah.
out there who feel the same, because as I mentioned at the beginning, I have friends who have been like, it's not really for me and it's really difficult to talk about. So we are not anti-anal, just anti-anal for
For
us.
ourselves. For
um,
now.
for now, exactly. So because that isn't your preference for you, like, what is your preferred sexual experience, and what are things that you like to explore with a partner that is sex for you? Because again, I think that is really important, that everyone knows, like, there's a huge space out there for lots of different things to explore sexually.
Oh, see, for me, sex is like different roles you can play. I love role play. Role play is one of the
Hmm.
biggest turn ons for me. I love verbal. I actually also love edging. I love spending ages sort of just touching each other's bodies and like a bit of like, it's all to do with the sort of energies together. And I love body contact. I could sit there
Hmm.
laying with a guy, and I mean, I do like a bit of light choking, I'm not gonna lie, but I do. But like the way he talks to me or holds me or like teases my sort of penis, like for me that is, I could be on an edge the entire time.
Yeah.
And I like sort of playing with those boundaries. And I also love role play. I love kink and fetish. For me, when a guy has kink or fetish, it turns me on more than anything, because I like knowing that they've got certain triggers that
Hmm.
get them excited. So I like to play on the fence there. I like to sort of tease in, tease out, tease in, tease out, and the same with me, with them. And for me, that's what is more likely to make me come, playing with what turns each other on really heavily, in the sense of
Sure.
our different roles and role reversal. And like like things like wrestling. I know that sounds really ridiculous and a bit like, it sounds silly saying it out loud, but I love being pinned and then suddenly like swapping it and me pinning them down, and like it's like a play of energy. Remember,
It's
it's
playtime.
playtime.
Yeah.
And I think we forget that sex isn't just a physical entity. Sex is
Mm-hmm.
something, it's a chemical change in your body. It's a
Mm-hmm.
energy change, or like everything's entangled. And to think it's just a physical thing would be almost a bit too simple of us to think. It's so much deeper.
Doing it a disservice.
Yeah, it's doing
Yeah.
a disservice. I've done a lot of reading about tantric sex as well, and like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
looking at also like Kama Sutra and things like that, like positions and kissing. I think, I don't know about you, but I find kissing so sexy. Kiss me all over my body. It just,
It's important for
yeah.
me. Kissing is really important.
Oh,
It's a
I
really
love it.
important thing, because for me, like, if I'm kissing someone and I'm not sort of I'm not feeling that connection through kissing, it's sort of hard for me to feel the connection sort of moving forward into other things, other
Parts, yeah.
parts of foreplay, like, even because for me, kissing during sex, during penetration, that's really important to me. So obviously the connection via a kiss has to be there for me. It's a huge thing. But I think earlier when you were speaking about build up and you were saying that, a lot of men penis owners don't put the time in. And I think a lot of us women and vulva owners feel the same, and I
Yeah.
did a poll not long ago asking, it was a would you rather, whether people would rather give up penetration or give up foreplay. And all the women were like, I'd give up penetration because foreplay is so important. And unless you're in like a real heat of a moment situation, but then there's like that build up emotionally, isn't there, if you've come to
Yeah.
that where it's just going to go straight into that. Taking it slow and like the build up is the majority of the pleasure for most women. Again, I can never speak on all. For most women and vulva owners, that build up and all of those aspects of foreplay and sex that go into it before penetration are the majority of where we get our pleasure.
Yeah.
So when that is sort of denied, it's almost a little thoughtless. I want to
I know.
say.
I know. I totally second you on that. And I think also when you sort of cut out foreplay, I think we forget that there's more that meets the eye in the world of the bedroom. You obviously, I mean, this is your world, so you're much more explorative with it. And I think that's one thing we've sort of lost as humans is we can explore. Imagine, this sounds really ridiculous, but you know what I'm like, so just hear me out. Imagine if your body was like a jungle or a forest.
Mm-hmm.
You'd want to see every crevice, every part of the jungle. You want to look around. You want to like explore
Mm-hmm.
what goes, what works. And I think we just treat our bodies like this is our body, must go in whole, boom. Whereas
Right,
there's
put
so
food in this
much.
hole, put genitalia in this hole.
Yeah. We can explore. It's so much fun. I've always said, I think, I don't know about you, but I have, especially in the bedroom, I very rarely say no. If a guy's like, I've tried it all before. You name it, I've probably tried it. He's like, this really turns me on. Will you do this? I'm like, do you know what? I am willing to try this. If
Yeah,
it doesn't work for me,
absolutely.
I'll hold my hands up. If it does work for me, great. Here's another fetish to the list. Just throw it on.
Sure. I mean, I think it takes confidence to be willing to sort of try, and I think a lot of people don't feel like they have that confidence to sort of try anything because we haven't had the education to know that that's okay.
Yeah.
And there's so much shame around asking for anything outside of what might be considered the normal confines of sex. I think some people still find it really difficult to say, oh, I'd love it if we would try this role play, or I'd love it if you would touch me here, even though it's like a sort of non-conventional part of my body that people associate with being a sexual place to be touched. Because we just sort of were educated, this goes in here when you want to create a baby. And we weren't sort of told beyond that sex is its own entire world.
Yeah.
Pleasure is its own entire world. So anything outside of the societal norms, I think people do still feel afraid to ask for and afraid to try, because if a partner asks for it, there's that part of you that wants to please your partner, but that fear of being like, what if I do it wrong? What if it's embarrassing? And I want everyone to sort of know there isn't, as long as everything, as I always say, is consensual,
Consensual
and
key.
you are approaching your sexual partner in that experience with respect, there's no wrong. And if things are gonna go what we might say wrong, but like there's not really any right or wrong, because what feels good and what doesn't feel good cannot be put into brackets of right and wrong.
No.
Things are gonna You're gonna find yourself in positions that are like less than ideal, and you just have to sort of like hopefully be with someone that you can just laugh it off and carry on, or laugh it off and take a break and pick back up a bit later. It doesn't have to be like, this is the end of the world. Clearly now I'm bad in bed and this has all gone wrong and this person's going to think that I can't satisfy them.
No, but also, I guess this is all linked to connection. For example, realistically, if you're really connected to someone, their pleasure tends to be your pleasure.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
so technically, if it does go wrong, or actually they probably weren't feeling pleasure in the moment either way, but actually, what might happen is they feel incredible pleasure. You at first go, "This is unusual to me," then you're like, "Actually, you're so turned on. This is now turning me on."
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you get this sort of sweet spot of like, woo, okay,
Yeah.
this is about.
For me, it is A, taking it slow, putting some time in, but B, when both people are focused on the other person's pleasure. That's my
Yeah,
ideal, I can't go, my ideal experience is that we're going to do this position. That's not how I feel. My ideal sexual experience is exactly that. Two people focused on the other person having pleasure.
yeah, I love it. Like even when if you look at kink, and I think this is what actually I find really fascinating about the kink and fetish world. A lot of people sort of chastise them. A lot of people look at the kink and fetish world and go, what a well. But actually, the kink and fetish world are some of the most educated on sex, some of the most educated on consent. If you're looking at sub dom play, a lot of
Yeah.
people who don't understand it, like that's so unfair. The poor sub is like doing everything the dom wants. Actually, in the kink world, the sub is getting a lot of pleasure
Yeah.
from the situation, and I think
And
people
has
who
a
aren't
lot of
educated on it.
control.
I'm very much a sub. I'm not going to say I'm fully sub because I like to, but I love being subordinate. And do you know what? I have a lot of control in that situation because
Yeah.
I know my limits. I make sure my limits are clear. Um, and also there's consent to it because a lot of the time when you do sub dom, I don't know if I'm assuming you have,
Mm-hmm.
um, those lines aren't blurred. They're discussed from the very beginning. There's a line of communication. It's very clear. And
You set
that's
clear
when you get,
boundaries.
yeah.
And there's a
And that's when the
different
pleasure
level of
hits.
trust. You know what I mean? Like there is a different level of trust to that, because especially playing with lines, playing with that line of sort of pleasure pain.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to really be in a position with trust, because I unfortunately as well, like, and I will speak about this in depth in another episode, but have been with someone, and that was sort of our ongoing play, and he did not respect the line of pleasure pain, and that became really very problematic.
Yeah.
And also I was talking to a friend about it the other day, definitely has meant that in relationships ongoing from that, even just small kinks that are just small things that can just be sort of popped into a sort of more conventional sexual experience, but just a little add-on, as you might say.
Yeah.
Those things have sort of been tarnished for me a little because of the times when it was pushed way beyond where I wanted it to, and it ended up being, physically not
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But and
Definitely.
again, that's something that I'm working on getting past, because I don't want to
Hold the
put
trauma.
that, but yeah, and put that
Yeah.
onto new partners. I want to have that experience with new partners, because there are people who are amazing and who I have a great sexual relationships with, and I know they would never dream of it. So they are things, they're things I want to tap into with those partners, and I think that we would have a great time. So that, and
Yeah.
that's another thing, is I think sex is ongoing work for
Yeah.
yourself and with partners, because we all experience different levels and types of sexual trauma throughout, whether that's we had a traumatic time losing our virginity, whether we had sort of whether we've suffered abuse, whether we've had we've all had sort of something affect us sexually at some point. So it is
Yeah,
ongoing work. And as I always say, communication is key. I just think it's the number one rule. If
I
we,
agree.
but I think it's the number one thing to having a good sexual relationship is the freedom to talk about it. But people seem to think that communication is boring.
It's weird. It's because sometimes they think communicating, I'm saying they because this isn't something I believe.
Hmm.
I think sometimes they think that communicating actually takes out the sexiness of sex because they're
Hmm.
like, I remember there was an episode, there was like a Channel 4 program where it was about consent and it was really interesting. And they had like this video and they had these teenagers watching these videos. And it was a guy and girl situation and he went in and kissed her. He then went in and they had sex and nothing was said.
Hmm.
Then the school kids were asked, "Oh, is there consent involved?" And they were like, "Yeah, the girl looked like she was into it, XYZ." Then they played a different version where the guy was like, "Can I kiss you? Can I do this?" Communicated throughout the whole process.
Hmm.
And initially they were like, "But that is so like boring. Like, why would you want to sit there and say, 'Can I do this? Can I do this?'" Actually, I don't know if you've been in that situation when someone does that and communicates every little thing they're about to do to you. There's consent, there's communication, and there's connection. And
Hmm.
wow, it's just I think people should try it if they haven't tried it. Of course, if you've been in a relationship for a long time and there's sometimes there's a silent consent. Actually, I don't even actually, do you know what? There's no such thing as silent consent, actually. I don't, because people can change their minds at the moment. So
Yeah,
it's quite,
absolutely. It's difficult. It's a difficult sort of thing to address when you're in a relationship because we do still live in a society where people think because you're in a relationship with someone, you have the right.
yeah, that happened. So this is one sort of reason when I sort of stopped doing anal was I was in a relationship with a guy. And I mean, first it was toxic because he wanted me to shave all my body hair all the time because he wanted me to be like completely unshaven, and which was hell. But when you're young, you're like, I'll do it for you.
Sure.
No, fuck that. I'll be hairy for me because I find myself, I'm not
Yeah.
shaving my body for no man. But when we tried penetrative sex, and I only did it a couple of times because it just hurt every time,
Sure.
I then communicated saying, actually, this is really hurting me, and I'm not getting any pleasure. And his response was instantly, yeah, but that's hot. Like I want to like go there. It's just hot for me. I instantly was like, "Ah!" And that's when I sort of broke it off because actually, if I'm telling you I'm in pain and you're kind of like, well, this is kind of hot for me to try and tell, like really fuck you.
Well,
There's,
quite, yeah. I think that's not an okay. Obviously, if something is not consensual and you get off on the fact it's not consensual, that's really problematic. There's no,
yeah,
there's no two ways about that because, as I say, this is a judgment-free zone, but that's all within the confines of consent.
yeah,
That person may find someone who gets off on being the other side of that, but it's a consensual thing again because it's a kink, and when we're talking about kink, we're talking about a consensual space.
yeah,
But when you're talking about someone who's like, no, I like that you don't want me to do it,
yeah.
that's
And I just,
I would I
hell,
would like to suggest that that person maybe go and get some education about consent and some therapy to figure out why they feel like that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because that comes from somewhere, and where is that sort of need for power over someone else's and control over someone else's body?
Yeah, for sure. I understand dominance is very much big in the world of sex, but
Mm,
as we once again we'll keep circling around it, dominance in the world of consent.
yeah,
I consent to you
absolutely.
dominating me in certain aspects, but if I'm in pain, trigger, please stop.
I personally couldn't think of anything worse than having sex, doing anything with someone who didn't want to be there doing that with me.
It's funny though, because when you're younger, you just assume, "Oh, okay, actually this is okay. This must be what's done. This is just the deal." Like, and I guess I'm thankful enough that I was mentally aware enough that actually
Mm,
this was wrong.
sure.
So I managed to get myself out of it. I don't want to say it's strong or weak because I actually don't think being in those relationships makes you any weaker. It's just your current state of mind that needs to sort of
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it just, given the individual situation, sometimes it takes longer for some people to be able to get out of those situations than others. So I think
yeah.
absolutely, for sure. Hopefully, as long as people get out of them in the end. When I came out of my relationship that was quite sexually abusive, people say, "Oh, I can't ever imagine you putting up with that,"
Yeah.
and it's sort of hard to even really get into those conversations because what do you even really say to that?
Yeah.
If only I could
It's
show
just that's
you.
I just
If only I could show you 24-hour CCTV of what being in that relationship was like and why I couldn't get out of it.
yeah. Oh God, I hate people. I hate it when people go like, "Oh, no, you'd never." It's like when someone goes up to you and go, "How are you single? You're such a catch." I don't know these. They're silly questions. All of them are silly questions.
And also, like, single is
That
a
don't really
problem
answer.
because I love it, because I want to be.
Yeah.
Okay, should we do some questions?
Let's do some questions.
So as you know, I put out on my Instagram today 2 polls because they came from questions that people sent in. And the first one was rimming, yuck or yum. I feel like a simple yes or no could have done, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know why you went yuck or yum.
But we went for rimming,
The-
yuck or yum. And that's fine. And I'll tell you the results and then we can discuss how we feel rimming yuck or yum. So 309 people voted.
Whoa, big
Right,
votes.
I know. And 62% said yuck and 38% said yum. And within that 38% saying yum, only 5 were women and vulva owners. 5.
Okay, that do you know what? That actually weirdly makes somewhat sense to me.
Okay.
Hear me out.
No, absolutely.
I don't think I don't know what your sort of follower base like makeup is, but I don't know if in heteronormative sexual education they actually talk much about rimming. I know in the sort of queer world, rimming is like a done deal. You just discuss
Sure.
it. It's quite normal. You almost get forced into trying it straight away. Whereas I don't know many female friends that have rimmed their male partners in heteronormative relationships, or even vice versa. Know many male friends who have rimmed their female partners, but that's all heteronormative.
I think when people might have been answering it, who knows what side they were, because obviously there's whether you want to do it to someone else or whether you want someone to do it to you. So even in itself, it's 2 different questions. So my first experience with rimming, I was, I think, about like 19, and I was just giving my partner oral sex and just playing around, and went down, was like having some fun with the balls, and I think I just kept licking lower and lower, and I think he discovered he liked that then in that moment, and then it just sort of became, and then he just realized he really liked that, so that became like a frequent thing for us, and sort of with other partners, I have sort of done the same thing in the way of just sort of like try, and I think that's always the way it's been approached with me as well. If I've been on the receiving end, is it's been approached during oral sex. You know what I mean? When you're sort of like having a bit of a play, and I can gauge people's reactions. And it got to the point where with a couple of people, I could tell they were like, why is this happening? Why is she doing this to me? So I tend to sort of now ask if people are into that, you know, because maybe it was pushing people's boundaries a bit. But I think because my first experience, that person loved it so much, I was like, maybe all people are going to love it. They just don't know it. So, you know, I was just going for it. But after a few experiences of people feeling clearly a bit hesitant about it, I find it safer to ask. And for me, I'm like, if a partner likes having it done, I am happy to do it.
Yeah, go to town.
If they don't, I'm not going to, it's no huge loss to me. You know, if I had a partner who didn't like receiving blowjobs, I would feel sad about it because I love doing that. Whereas rimming, it's very much for me, like I'm more than happy to do it. I like doing it if my partner likes receiving it.
Yeah.
And again, I can take or leave it being done to me. It doesn't do much for me. So if someone likes doing it, I'm like, you know what? You have a great time down there, but don't spend too much time down there because it's not really doing much for me.
I just got a picture of you reading a book while it's being written. Like... Done? Okay, great. Ready? Okay.
So I guess I would have picked yum.
Yeah.
Because I'm on that side. But what are your thoughts?
I'm not going to say yuck or yum because
Okay.
I'm going to say yeah. But one thing is, I sort of weirdly discovered rimming very late in my life, around 25, 24, 25. I think it's just because my relationship with my arsehole, as you can probably tell from this whole concept, is just, I'm like, my arsehole is my arsehole. But then a guy really wanted it to me, and I was like, I don't mind. Like, I'm quite hairy, so I was like, I don't know if you're going to enjoy it. But he was like, yeah, I love hair. And then he sort of went for it, and I was like, oh wow, this feels incredible. And he was having a great time. And then we tried different positions of it, where it was like me on top, me below. And then I was like, do you want me to do it to you? And then he sort of sorry, I hope my family not listening to this, but then he sort of just
Babe,
yeah,
it's too late for that now.
he sort of sat on my face, and I just found myself get really turned on by it, because there's something about,
Okay.
I actually quite like a bit of breath play generally. I just
Yeah,
really
sure.
turns me on. So then when it was also like adding an extra layer to it, where I also was like almost doing something, and he was getting turned on by it, I was like, this is the hottest thing in the entire world. So in that context, actually, big yum for me.
Yum.
Yeah.
I would say for people who have not experienced rimming, but maybe are thinking about trying it, I think one of the reasons people, obviously, as with anything to do with your asshole, we know why people get nervous about
Yeah.
doing anything with it. I mean, pain aside, your tongue isn't really going to hurt anything. Probably,
Yeah.
it's unlikely. So we all know what the issue really is, and people worry about hygiene, and I totally get it. So if you know that's something that you're going to do with your partner, you know what to do. Make sure you are clean and
Yeah.
comfortable. But I have always said to my friends who sort of haven't done it but are considering trying it, because I am a massive advocate for lube. I think lube is amazing. I love it. And I've said, if you want to try it, why not, like, the first time that you try it, use like a flavored lube that you like the taste of, because then you're going
I've
to,
not done that,
because then you know that you're going to be, I think it will make your partner feel more comfortable, because they're going to know that that's what their partner's going to be getting, be tasting. So
what about some jelly? That'd be quite nice.
or even, I mean, if you want to, even just some food play. I always just go for lube because obviously it's the sex related thing. But yeah, I would say steer away from the Nutella, because it might just feel a bit too familiar.
No. Unless you're into that, I'm sorry. But yeah.
No, absolutely. Listen, hey, I mean, I love a bit of Nutella, but I think, like, if that is something and you're on the fence about maybe giving it a go, that is just one tip that I think can be helpful. If your concern is hygiene, it makes people feel a bit more comfortable all round.
Or even try it in the shower. I know that because you've just had a shower, you're both freshly clean, you're already naked. Go try that. Although it's a bit annoying. It's so funny because everyone thinks doing anything in the shower is really sexy, but then all you find yourself like water's just like, and also one's always cold because one's in the water and the other.
I've said before, shower sex not for Peach. It's not for me.
No.
People always say to me, I thought you'd be right into anal. I think because I talk about sex so much, people think I'm into everything. And I always say, listen, it's not anal sex for me. It's not period sex for me. It's not shower sex for me. They're three things that I just don't work for me.
No, that's okay.
And that's okay. But people, even one time, one of my colleagues was like, oh, I really thought that you'd be really into anal. I'm not sure that, I mean, what gives off that vibe? Who knows? But I am not. But however, the rimming. So there we go. Anyone who is on the fence and wants to cross over from yuck to yum, maybe straight out of the shower, maybe in the shower if you feel like it, or try some flavored lube and let someone's asshole taste like cherry or whatever flavor you prefer. In fact, I'm like, it doesn't need to be for a beginner. I'm just like, I'm just going to probably do that all the time.
Yeah, also question, why is it always cherry that everyone flicks a flavor? Like, I don't ever eat cherries on a normal day-to-day basis, but when we talk about sexual tastes, cherry is always the one that pops out. Oh, pops your cherry.
I was going to say, do you think it's because virginity is referred to as pop your cherry, so people just assume cherry is like a sexual fruit?
I know, but
I've never actually used cherry flavored lubes. I don't even know why I chose that.
Because it's not, just it's so subconsciously built in our
training. It is absolutely. But those are our rimming tips, if anyone wants to give it a go. Okay, so my other poll was threesomes, yay or nay.
You go first, go on.
298 people voted, 56% yay, 44% nay.
Pretty even.
Yeah, pretty even. I feel that threesomes are overrated, personally. I've had quite a few. I've had me and a penis owner and a vulva owner, me and two penis owners. And yeah, I'm like, it's fun. But like, I never think of a threesome I've had and favoured it over an experience I've had where it's just been a partner.
Yeah.
So I'm like all for it. And especially if you want to give one a go, give it a go.
Mine's on like, depending on the terms.
Mm-hmm.
never done a threesome with my. Oh God, I haven't had a partner in so long. I've always been the invited guest, and I feel like the star of the show. So
I think that's the better position to be in, to be fair, because it can be tricky in a partnership.
yeah, because then
I
there's like
think.
jealousy, whereas I don't worry. I mean, when I'm the third invited person, I'm not invited, but I'm not worried about jealousy. The only thing is, I mean, like, the last time I tried penetrative is when I had a threesome, and that's when it got really badly torn on. I was like, no.
Right.
I know for a fact that one of the boys were really into me, and the boyfriend was into me, but I was more about this, and I was quite aware of it at the time. So it's quite. I
Sure.
think either way, it's quite hard to know that both boyfriends love you equally. But all in all, I'm more of a yay because I actually quite. If they're both dominant, bloody hell, that's gonna be so sexy for me. If one is more subordinate, I don't enjoy it as much because I'm like, that's my role.
Okay.
So that's the only time I don't like it, when they want to. I know that sounds so linear and boring, but in a
No,
threesome,
not at all.
I like to be
Listen,
the
we've all
star.
got our preferences,
Yeah,
and that's, yeah, for me, like I said, it's, if people want to do it, it's not something that I'm not into. So I'm like, yeah, sure, we
yeah,
can. But I also don't mind if I don't. I'm really on the fence with it. I'd probably, if I had to vote, I'd say yay, because I've had some fun times.
yeah,
I do often feel like it's a lot of the time something people are doing to like tick that box. So they can be like, I've had a threesome. You know what
yeah.
I mean? That's definitely the sort of vibe that I've got a couple of times. But I do feel safer exactly being an invited guest. I think if you are going to consider doing that and you are in a relationship, do make sure that your communication is strong and that your trust is strong, because otherwise it can put a relationship in quite a difficult place, which I have witnessed before. So
Yeah. Also, I've had friends who were in bad positions and they're like, okay, let's spice it up and do threesomes. No, that is not an answer.
no, it's not. It's not. And it can make things significantly worse. What spices things up is communication, is talking about it, actually. Um, okay, next question. I'm excited about this question because I love giving blowjobs. I love giving oral. But I will always stand by it in the same way that a fellow female and vulva owner just knows how the body works. So it just feels natural. As like good as I might feel I might be, I truly believe that no one's giving a better blowjob than another penis owner. And this next question is, what is your best oral advice?
Oh my God, my best oral advice. Okay, my best oral advice, because I think I give amazing blowjobs, and I think it's because I've got big lips. But my best oral advice is you don't need to don't go straight in for the suck. Do you know what
Mm-hmm.
it's about teasing
And
every
take in your
take
time.
your time. Oh my God, my like trick. God, don't, you can steal it. I'll give this as a trick to all. It's actually
Trademark it.
trademark it. Is kissing the inside of the leg first, because especially if you've got your hairy legs, it's like something like triggers. It just travels, so you kiss the inside of the leg. Then what I do is I kiss inside leg, and then my lips pass the dick. Don't And I
Mm-hmm.
kiss the inside of the other leg. Once again, go back, kiss the balls, and then you slowly. What I do is I lick up the dick, and then
Yeah.
we go in.
We love that tongue play.
Yeah.
Listen,
What's
it's all
yours?
about the tease. It's all about the tease, because people think that that's for women and vulva owners, that they're the ones who like to be teased, they're the ones who like to be built up. But I'm sorry, like I like to take my time.
Mm,
Like for me, like just a really hectic hold my hair and just like go for gold. Like I guess like if that's like what works for you, like fine, every now and again we can go. But if I'm like really like in a moment with someone, I'm kind of like not far off what you were saying. So I guess I feel reassured, because I'm always like, I bet gay men give the best blowjobs. Exactly that. It's always, and I think changes in pressure,
yeah.
changes in what you're doing with your tongue throughout. It's not just sort of, it's the same for me in all foreplay. My oral advice is pay attention to who you are giving oral to. Read their body, read their reactions. This is really my
Yeah.
advice on anything foreplay related. Read their body, read their reactions, because you can tell when something is feeling better than something else was. You can hear it in their breath. You can literally feel it in their
They can
body.
do this thing.
Like you can literally feel that going on in your mouth. you can tell if someone's like really into something that you're doing.
Yeah.
So for me, my advice is, because everyone is going to be different. I've definitely had partners who keeping it slow for a really long time, they love it and it drives them mad. And then I've had partners who've wanted the tempo to sort of pick up pace and sort of get there a bit quicker. So for me, yeah, it's just paying attention to whoever you are with and sort of looking out for their reactions. Yeah,
I love it.
100%.
I once actually got I've got a tiny little vibrator, and I once put it
Mm-hmm.
against her dick and then sucked both off at the same time.
Listen, yeah,
Boys can be fun too.
a sex toy during, or exactly, because like those like vibrators, they get the nerve endings going, hey, because we just don't have the capacity to get nerve endings moving that quickly.
Yeah.
Because we physically can't. Literally no one's tongue moves that quickly.
No.
So it's no one's fault. It's no one's fault. I'm always just, get other things involved. Like I like playing with people's balls and
Yeah.
and I just sort of play around and sort of figure out what they like, because also you can tell if someone really likes that because they'll react to it, and sometimes you can tell if someone can take or leave it because they kind of like fall silent for a second.
Yeah, they're like,
and I'm like, okay, it's time to go back up.
kisses.
But that's how I discovered rimming.
Yeah.
It was just playing around and seeing what worked, and there we go. So yeah, that's my advice. That's my best oral advice. So there we go. Okay, next question. Do I ask if he's tested, or is that a buzzkill?
No, not a buzzkill at all. I thought I was gonna say don't ask.
I didn't think you were, but I was like, I'm gonna wait.
No, it's so important. Because actually, once again, we say this word about 12 million times in this episode: communication. Also STIs, STDs, they're all very normal. They're like, everyone will have one in their lifetime. It's not this weird it's very normal.
Right.
And also, fair play if they're like, actually, do you know what? I've just tested positive for XYZ. You go, okay, then how about this? Get it sorted out. I'll see you next week. It's super Catholic. Life, we are here to like also look after ourselves and our bodies, and you don't have to be scared of asking someone's sort of status in anything. In the same way you shouldn't judge anyone for their status.
Absolutely not. But I think there is still so much shame and stigma around STIs that it makes people feel like they can't talk about it, because that should be information that we all just feel very comfortable with being quite upfront with.
Yeah.
But what I don't understand is that no one is mad when someone has tonsillitis, which you can just literally catch from being on the same bus as someone who has tonsillitis if they cough in your face. But you're literally rubbing your body parts against each other, and all of a sudden it's like this mad huge problem that someone's caught an infection. Like, of course that's going to happen sometimes.
We need to change the conversation, and we need to change the language around it too, because you can't. I remember I overheard someone saying, are you clean? What does that mean? Are you clean? Yes, I've showered.
Right.
I have showered, but I'm not going to entertain what the other meaning you think.
Because you can definitely, I think, catch like laryngitis from kissing someone, right, who has laryngitis.
It's called the kissing disease.
Used to call it that, the kissing disease. Right, okay. But no one goes, oh my God, well, they've got laryngitis. And it's just the same thing. It's just another body part.
Exactly.
And if someone hasn't been tested, you then are in a place to make an informed decision whether you want to use a condom or just wait until they have.
Yeah.
I think testing is really important. I get tested regularly. I think now it's made really, really easy for us to do so. So there's really less excuse. You don't have to go and sit in a clinic for hours and feel uncomfortable, which again, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable, but we do.
Yeah.
You don't have to go and sit there for hours and wait to be seen. You can literally get tests sent to you.
I actually ordered mine yesterday and it arrived this morning.
Yeah. And you can do it yourself, get sent off. Like, there's sort of no excuse. And I think for yourself, do it for yourself. And it's not just for other people. You need to do it for yourself. And so it shouldn't be a buzzkill. And I think if someone reacts like it is a buzzkill for them, then that is a problem, because really we should all be having that conversation with our sexual partners. We should all know that we are in a safe space health-wise, because whatever is going on with someone, it's absolutely fine. But if we are going to put our bodies in those vulnerable positions with each other, we deserve to have that information.
Yeah, exactly.
And it shouldn't be a problem to have those conversations.
If you're going to go out in the rain, you can potentially get wet.
Quite. Absolutely. So there we go. No, it is not a buzzkill. Yes, you should ask if he is tested, and you shouldn't feel bad about it. And also get tested yourself.
Yeah.
If you're asking if they're tested and you're not, that might be a problem. But so, make sure we're all on a level playing field and we're all just supporting each other in our sexual health. And then we can all move forward in a more positive way. Next question. Not a good one for us. Here we go. What's the best position for anal?
The best position for anal for me
We're
personally.
gonna try. We're gonna try. Let's give it a go. So I did
Okay.
some research.
I think from my very limited experience, the best position for for a newcomer, one where you go on your back and they are sort of on top and they sort of slowly ease in, play, ease, play, ease. Or equally, I think some people have said that if you slowly sit on it, because then you can sort of work out which angles you want to work with. But that's from me who doesn't really do it. So
No. So me either. So I was like, I knew that this question was coming. It's important to me to be able to give people as best advice I can. So maybe another time I'll speak to someone who loves anal and they can give better advice than one of us. But listen, the question has come through for us, so we're going to answer it. So I did look this up, and I read that for first time triers of anal, if you're sort of newer to the practice, that it was suggested that being on top was the better position, because you are in control. You can sort of like take lead on how fast you want to move, how fast or slow you want to take it. And it was also suggested that you're in a better position if you are facing your partner, because even if you feel uncomfortable to verbally communicate, your eyes will do it for you, was the suggestion, that you can tell if someone is grimacing and it doesn't feel good, or if it does feel great.
yeah.
So, there's that communication, whether you sort of mean it or not. I would obviously as well recommend lots of lube. All the lube. You can never, there can never be too much lube.
No.
When it, foreplay, feel ready, talk about it, make sure that you're with a partner that you feel comfortable with. Because the first time, and listen, there are things that we try. I know I've tried things with partners before. The first time you try it, it's not necessarily what we would consider sexy.
Yeah.
Because you're working your way through it together. It's like a means to an end. So that, like, if you get to a place where that does feel good and you're like, okay, yeah, then moving forward, you're not going to be working through it every time. But so the first time you try it, it might not feel like the sexiest thing in the world, but as long as you are communicating and you feel like you are in control, and that that you have that control for yourself. And also, like, I would recommend maybe some anal massage, just to sort of get the area
massaged
and relaxed. And always recommend a toy. Listen, I recommend a toy for everything.
Yeah, same. I love toys.
Like, maybe like just before you're going to try it, maybe give it a go with a partner with a toy that is a bit smaller, and see how that feels, to sort of prep yourself, and then go for it. And sending you all the love and luck in the world.
Good luck.
I want people to love it. You know what I mean? I want people to enjoy it. I wish I did enjoy it, because I love expanding my sexual horizons. I wish I liked it and was going for that more frequently, but who knows? Maybe in my future.
We're going to be like, in our next episode, we love anal now. Oh my God.
Can you imagine in a year's time? Well, since that episode, we've actually been giving everything a go, and now we love it. And I can't leave the house without something being up my arse. Who knows? On that note, someone else had actually sent another question saying, I want to have anal sex, but I do feel too scared. I kind of like the idea of it, but not really the practicality. Am I a side?
Do you know what? With that, I think, I'm not going to say, once again, we talk about these titles and these sort of labels. I'm not going to say you necessarily are a side, a top, bottom, or reverse. I think what you personally are in is your explorative stage. And that's totally fine. I think, as you said, you want to try it. So I actually recommend going for it and trying, because you might enjoy it. I know you're afraid. Make sure you do it with someone you trust. But don't put labels on yourself just yet, because you're still exploring. In the same way, I wouldn't put, technically, I say I'm a side, but I've explored a bit and I know what I don't like and I do like. If you're yet to explore it and try it, put yourself out there. Also, equally, if you don't want to try it and you just like, if your comment had said, I really don't want to do it, I'm not into it, great. But as you all said, actually, I want to try it. And that's
Mm.
okay. You're just a bit frightened. Try it with someone you trust. Lots of lube we've discussed, and then make a decision.
There's like things that you can use to
The
like
toys, yeah.
train your asshole, right?
Yeah, you can actually get them on Amazon, I think. I think they're called like bum trainers.
Okay.
So there's like
Okay.
there's little sizes, and you can like basically make them a bit bigger. But you basically train your bum. So you can put the smallest size in first, and then you walk around your house and just be like do, just leave it in there. And then when you feel more comfortable, the next time you try it, go a bit bigger and a bit bigger. And it's allegedly meant to just sort of start stretching it out a bit and making it less uncomfortable to try and put a full-on penis in.
Great. You sort of say, we say things like bum trainer and we all fall about laughing, don't we? But
Yeah,
actually, for someone who is like looking to try anal for the first time, that's actually an amazing thing that someone has come up with,
so true.
because that's a great tool, because someone looked at that and thought, there's a problem there, because if you are looking to go from nothing to a full penis, it probably isn't going to, for most people, that isn't going to feel fantastic.
No.
So someone looked at that and thought, there's a problem there and I'm going to try and solve it.
I'd love to create gyms, but for sex. Like while we go to the gym, oh, I need to get bigger arms. I'm going to do like the arm machine. Oh, I need to get a more stretched hole. I'm just going to do the bum machine. Like, why don't we just normalize that? That'd be so much fun.
But listen, it might happen, and then like people in however many years, people might be laughing about the sex gyms, but we'll be like, nope, listen, we saw a problem and we looked to solve it.
It's like the face gym. There's now a face gym where what people do, they just like do that to your face. So,
Yeah, to try and keep their skin looking young,
oh my
right? Or
God,
something.
Peach, we just come up with a really great business idea, the sex gym.
Yeah, we're copywriting it now. No one take it.
No, you
We're
cannot.
building the sex gym.
Oh my God. This is,
We're going to use the studio that we work in now, which we won't mention because obviously I don't mention brands, but
no.
we'll let them know tomorrow at work. We're going to be taking it over and turning it into a sex gym. Okay, yeah, so
People love it.
hopefully that is helpful. And also, don't think you have to label yourself, asking, am I a sider? Just don't think you have to label yourself
No.
with any of that yet. I think just see how you go, and whatever your choices are and whatever your sexuality is, just be proud of that and enjoy all of the wonderful things that has to offer.
My big piece of advice actually is if you're using a label to feel part of a community and it makes you feel safe, fabulous, use it. If you're using a label to represent you and make that your personality, me personally, I would say don't do that, because you are more than just a label that you as a human have 20,000 labels. You could be, as I said, you could be a side, but you could be vegetarian. You could, two different worlds. So I don't think your label should never define you. That's what I'm saying. Your label should never define you. Your label should just help you feel part of the community and feel safe. Fantastic. But there's more to you than your label.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good advice, because I think in the same way, when I spoke to my best friend Deb in our first episode and we spoke about her losing her virginity later than society deems normal or acceptable because she was in her mid-20s, she felt like she was defined by the fact she was a virgin.
Yeah.
And I think that when it comes to sex, it does quite often seem to become our definition, because I feel like more than anything else, people talk to me about the fact that I'm not monogamous, and they're like, tell me about that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I have so many other things to talk about. Why are we talking about this again?
Yeah.
The fact that I don't conform to what society thinks is a normal or a heteronormative relationship is really not the most interesting thing about me, I promise.
It's almost like you become a bit of a unicorn to them. They're like, wow.
Okay, next question. Should there be a gay Love Island?
Okay, I mean, Love Island as a concept is toxic as it is. So I understand. I understand when people are like, it's so not fair. We've got this big show and it's so heteronormative. Why do you want? We don't want that show. I don't want another show where, let's be honest, it's going to be a bunch of white muscle gays all on the island. Like I think about this all the time. Very, very rarely are any Asian men on dating shows, because weirdly Asian men are sort of seen as the bottom of the pile on the dating apps. I think they actually did a survey on it, and like Asian men did come out on the bottom, and it just really angered me and saddened me at the same time.
Okay.
But if you look at these shows as well, it's represented on the dating shows we watch as well. So I
Yeah.
don't, without making it about that, and if let's bring it back to the question, it's more so that actually let's create something new. I don't know why we're so obsessed of recreating the same thing, but for us, like, I don't know about you, if I bring it about females, when they did Ocean's 8, Ocean's 9, whatever, they're like, we're going to do an all-female one. Or when they did Ghostbusters, we're going to do an all-female one. Or James Bond, we're going to make a female. No, these characters are created, they're done, their stories are locked. Females don't want you to suddenly place them in the characters you've already created. Well, I'm assuming here. You
Yeah.
want to have your own stories written. We who are the minority in whatever sense don't need you to place us into your narratives, create new
Yeah.
narratives.
Yeah.
How about you? How do you feel about it?
No, like I think that sums it up really well. I don't think that I would have, I sort of, I don't think they're actually not films that I've watched. I don't think I even really thought about it until you said that just then. And I was like, yeah, I really agree with everything you're saying. I am not ashamed to say I hate Love Island. I don't watch it. I've never watched it. It's absolutely not for me. I think that the fact that we're allowing a show to continue where there's been multiple suicides and there isn't accountability being taken for that, and the show is still allowed to air, even though multiple people have ended their lives over the show, is not great. But it was offensive for them to say to bring LGBTQ plus contestants on would cause too many difficulties.
It's so ridiculous.
So I presume that's why this question has been asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone deserves a better show than Love Island. A straight, bi, pan, however you identify, we all deserve better.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I agree, to be honest.
This next question's a bit weird because I don't know this to be a thing. So I'm going to read it out. But you might understand it because as someone in the male gay community, you might understand where this question is coming from. As a gay man, how do you feel about the growing obsession older women have with the idea and fantasy of two men having sex?
That's a new one to me as well, actually.
I know, it's so interesting because I didn't know that was a thing.
I didn't know that was a thing either. As in, like, but also, if this is quite an assumptive thing, because whoever said this, I don't know how big their sort of survey pot is of older women. Is it just one? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it a big discussion? I personally am.
And also, what is older?
What is older? Like, is this like a 19-year-old talking about us in our 30s? Or
we're like, please, I'm like, please don't tell me I'm older.
How do you feel about watching gay men have sex? I mean, I didn't think this was actually a thing. So this is news to me, news to you apparently so. But if it were a thing, I don't
really feel informed enough to answer the question.
But it's also not really, I guess, I don't know where it's come from, actually. It's quite interesting.
But I feel like when they say as in porn, men watch lesbian porn all the time.
I actually watch a lot of straight porn, weirdly. Yeah, when it comes to porn, even porn, I don't know where they've got the stats from, actually, because if I go in like X video gay section, very little females are featured. So I don't know who this pool of women enjoying gay sex is, but good on you, enjoy it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not a gay man. They've asked as a gay man, so the question is not for me at all because I have nothing to add. I just would say that there are men penis owners out there who watch lesbian porn. So if you as a woman and vulva owner want to watch some gay male porn, then
live it.
Good for you, and whatever works for you. Thoughts on group sex?
I think it's fabulous. Although actually I think it's fabulous. I have been in situations where there's certain things that I don't take or do, but all the boys have been off their head and they're like going for it, and then I've been very much not getting involved. And it's happened a couple of times where I sort of sat on the side being like, I'm going to get a taxi home now because this feels uncomfortable. So I actually, I love how fast I was about saying I love it, but I actually have never really done it properly. I love the idea of it. If everyone was very much in a healthy headspace, I think it'd be really sexy, but otherwise, no. But I love that I really did a 360 there. I love the idea of it. I love it,
but no.
I love it. Yeah. How about you?
To be fair, so I, in my experiences, have found group sex to be a little easier than a threesome.
Yeah.
So you know how earlier I said I think threesomes are a bit overrated, but I find that group sex is a little easier because there's more people and just it's easier for people to stay busy,
Yeah.
to not worry that one person's maybe feeling neglected or left out or, and I think as we spoke about earlier with threesomes, it sometimes is people looking to spice something up. Really, when you're in a group sex situation, then at that point you sort of know what you're letting yourself
Into.
in for a bit. Yeah.
Well, I'm hugely empathetic, so if I see someone that's not like feeling a bit left out, I'm like, okay, come in, come on,
Let's
don't
have a
waste.
chat.
Yeah, let's
No,
unpack.
absolutely. Yeah, so for me, I think that it can be, I think for me it's better than a threesome because just more people are involved.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So yeah, there we go. And last question that I mean, listen, we got sent so many, but this podcast cannot be 3 hours long. So last one that I've got from the ones that I've chosen from that was sent was how do you broach the subject? Well, we sort of touched on this earlier. How do you broach the subject with a new partner that you don't enjoy anal penetration?
I guess that's a lovely last question because it summarizes
Mm-hmm.
communication from the get-go and just make it very clear. If using dating apps, if you feel like you want to put it in your bio, put it in your bio, then you don't even have to have that conversation. I know
Mm-hmm.
those that use Grinder, I know Grinder's got its own issues, but now it's actually an option. On your Grinder profile, you
Mm.
can actually say I'm a side. Once again, you don't even have to broach the question, then it's there up in writing. If you
Yeah,
feel
they know it before they're even.
in it, and obviously some people
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable sort of stating their sexual preferences that early on because they're like, I don't want people to think I'm just in it for the sex. Um, in that situation, you can bring it up very casually when you're just sort of talking to someone. Communication, communication, communication.
Yeah. Do you now you've sort of become this is just me asking now. Now you've become more comfortable, because obviously it sounds like for a long time you were still trying it and giving it a go and partners wanted to and you were going along with that. But now you've sort of made that decision and are comfortable with actually this is just not what I like. Do you sort of feel more confident
I do feel more
moving into new
confident.
situations with people?
Yeah, I do feel more confident, but sometimes I also still feel frustrated because many a situation, and it's happened recently too, where I've sort of stated it, but throughout the whole sexual process, and it was going really gorgeously and amazingly, they kept saying, "Oh, I just really want to fuck you." Oh, and they kept saying it, and I was like, and that is very easy. And this is my advice: it's very easy to then feel pressured into being like,
Right.
okay, fine, okay, you really want this, I'll give it to you, but remember, it's okay to stick to your guns.
Mm,
And be like, no, I've stated this. You're here in my room, whatever. I've stated that from the start that I'm not going to do it. You
yeah.
hold value. You can hold value in your choice and your decision, and it is your choice and your decision as to what happens with your body.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's like, oh, for fuck's sake, and gets angry, that's them projecting. That's their own issue. That's nothing to do with you.
Yeah, and you definitely think that it's well, as we spoke about earlier, it's better to sort of have that conversation sooner than later, so that
100%.
the
Yeah.
information is out there,
Yeah.
and then we can all feel confident with our decisions moving forward. I hope. But and my last question to you, as I like to ask people, what is your ideal sexual experience?
Oh God, you actually like? Do you want me to talk you through the entire experience?
I mean, if you would like to, then go ahead.
Okay, I'll give you a brief overline. I think my ideal situation is actually
You're like, it would be August 15th and the temperature would be
32 degrees. Oh, that's too hot. Actually, it'd be kind of where a guy sort of comes to my house and we're like chilling, watching TV, and then this sounds so ridiculous to say out loud. Then I don't know, he'd just sort of take control of me in the situation, consensual. I'd make it very clear from the start that I'd want him to do this,
Yeah.
and then almost boss me around a little bit and just like, and then what I'll do is I'll play back. I'll be a bit teasing and a bit like a bit of a naughty, like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I want them to be like, pin me up against the wall, kiss me. Back to the touching the body. He's like, I want you to kiss me all over. I want you to worship me. And I like just being edged. I want to just be edged and him to be edged like that for the
Yeah.
entire day. And then towards the end, lots is going to happen between them. I'm not going to give you every little piece because some secrets have been kept. Let's just say we're going to be playing with our senses. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't see, you can't hear, you can't. That will go on throughout the process, and then eventually, when you eventually come, it's that build up of like edge off, edge off, edge off.
Yeah, edging is great.
Ooh, and also I want us to come at the same time. It's like you,
Okay.
and there's not because nothing for me. I don't know about you, but the biggest turn off is when they make me come, and then they want me to continue on them because I'm like, no, I'm no longer in the mood. I'm over it. I just want to make a cup of tea now.
I want to sleep now.
Yeah. So we have to come at the same time because if I come before you come, it'll be a real struggle for me to continue to go.
Right, and if they come before you, you're going to be in your head about them really feeling like that.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, I know that they probably just want to go and make a cup of tea.
Yeah, so that's why I think communication throughout. I'm like, are you almost there? Are you almost there? Like when I know that person is on edge, I can then I know myself. I can get myself to that edge and bish bash bosh, and that's the process.
I love it.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I've asked people that, it's been like one line. I feel like I was almost on the verge of a little sexy audiobook.
Oh my God. Oh, and actually, this is how I do my audiobook. And he entered the room and touched my body.
Babe, why not?
Oh.
Why not? Listen, me and my friend Kaylee talked about audio porn, and it is the one,
Yeah.
as we would say. Well, listen, before we draw it to a close, please, Kush, would you mind dropping your socials for anyone who will follow you after listening to today?
My Instagram and my Twitter are both at Kushting. And yeah, they're my socials. Kushting. It's like texting, sexting, Kushting. So yeah.
Oh, love that. Love that little analogy there. Thank you so, so much for coming on today. And I really hope that for anyone listening who might be going through anything similar, might feel they can relate, hopefully this conversation is helpful, will help you to move forward with your sexual partners feeling more able to communicate freely and feel more comfortable in your sexual choices, because you are no less of a sexual being if you do not want to have anal sex. Whatever your choices are, we all have a right to pleasure and a right to feel sexual and to explore that in whatever way we want, consensually. Kush, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for your time as well.
Well, I am just so grateful to Kush for today's conversation and for willing to be as open and honest on a lot of topics that are still steeped in shame and judgment. I can only hope that this helps more members of the male gay community to feel more confident and comfortable if, like Kush, you feel like anal sex isn't really for you, whether you choose to identify as a side or not. Labels may be extremely prevalent at the moment, but as discussed, you never have to agree or adhere to anything that doesn't feel right for you. There is pleasure to be had out there in many, many forms, and this is all about working out what that pleasure means for you. And it's time we let go of the heteronormative ideas that it's all about penetration. So penetration or no penetration, or Pe-No-tration rather, hopefully with each conversation and each assurance that whatever we're dealing with, we aren't alone, we're all getting one little step closer to achieving our own pleasure goals. I really hope you enjoyed this week's conversation, and until next week, thanks for coming. Thank you for tuning in to Sex on the Peach today, and I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. You can find and follow me on Instagram, YouTube and TikTok at Sex on the Peach Cast, and you can also get in touch with me at sexonthepeachcast@gmail.com. Please do continue to like, share, subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and I'll see you next week. Love, Peach.